I've heard so many people tell me, you don't want to weight lift. You're going to look so manly.
Yeah.
You already have thick legs. You're going to look so like muscular and like manly. And it's such false information.
Yeah.
You're not going to look like a man.
Yeah.
That I have less cellulite.
Yes,
I notice that my ass
for
is
sure.
less saggy.
I never thought the story of a fitness coach would haunt me the way this one does. Gloria Zamora wasn't a household celebrity like an actress or a pop star, but to thousands of women, she was so much more. She was a lifeline, a mother of 7, a fighter who seemed to radiate hope and strength from every photo and video she shared online. Watching her, you'd swear she'd conquered all the darkness in her past. But behind that glowing smile was a secret. And on one quiet Saturday night, over sushi and soft laughter, that secret exploded into devastating violence. Gloria and the man she was beginning to fall in love with were gunned down in cold blood, not in some dark alley or in the middle of a crime-ridden neighborhood, but in a suburban parking lot bathed in the neon glow of restaurant signs and the red pulse of brake lights. The man who pulled the trigger wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. He was someone Gloria had once trusted, someone she'd built a life with, and someone she was desperately trying to escape. It's the detail that keeps echoing in my mind. Why are women most at risk right after they finally find the courage to leave? Before we proceed, I would like to ask you something. Have you ever known someone who seemed unshakable on the outside, but who might have been hiding a storm of danger behind closed doors? Tell me in the comments. Because this story isn't just about Gloria Zamora. It's about how many of us miss the signs until tragedy leaves us asking why. Very quickly, as well, tell me where you are watching from. I appreciate your support here. When I first stumbled across Gloria Zamora's Instagram, I remember thinking she was unstoppable. Her page was a riot of color, fitness tips, smiling selfies, high-energy videos where she lifted weights with perfect form. She had over 150,000 followers hanging on her every word. But it wasn't just her workouts that drew people in. Gloria spoke openly about healing from pain, about starting over no matter how broken life left you. She was a mother of 7 children, juggling kids, business, and the endless expectations of the online world. And somehow, through it all, she managed to look as if nothing could touch her. But there was something else about her that fascinated me even more. She hosted a podcast called Estranged. In it, she talked about resilience, about how to escape toxic relationships, how to rediscover yourself after betrayal. Listening to her voice was like listening to someone who had walked through fire and made it out alive. Sometimes, though, her voice would waver. Just a little. A softness would creep in, as though there was something she wasn't quite saying. A detail left unsaid. And now, knowing how her story ends, I keep wondering. Was she trying to tell us something all along? Her followers adored her. They left comments calling her an inspiration, a warrior, a queen. And yet, for every beaming post, there were private messages she never shared publicly. Messages from women thanking her for saving them from abusive relationships, for giving them the courage to leave. It makes me wonder, did Gloria ever feel trapped herself, even as she was helping so many others break free? Was she fighting a private war no one could see? And here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because while she was lifting weights and sharing affirmations, someone else was watching. Not just fans, but a man who once swore he loved her, and who, even then, was quietly plotting how to make sure she would never belong to anyone else. It makes me question everything about the world we live in online. We're all so quick to hit like, to post heart emojis, to believe what we see on screen. But how much do we really know about the people behind those filtered photos? Do you think social media makes it harder or easier for someone to leave an abusive relationship? Let me know in the comments. Because in Gloria's case, the answer might be far more complicated than any of us wants to believe. Gloria Zamora was the kind of woman who made you believe in second chances. She was living proof that you could rebuild your life no matter how many times it fell apart. Watching her daily Instagram stories, you'd see her racing between school drop-offs, business meetings, and intense workouts. One moment, she was in the gym, hoisting barbells like they weighed nothing. Next, she was braiding her daughter's hair or making dinner for 7 kids, all while talking into her phone camera like she was chatting with a close friend. It's easy to admire someone like that. The sheer energy, the optimism. Gloria made it look effortless, as if life could always be tamed with enough discipline and a good set of workout bands. And yet, I can't help thinking now how exhausting it must have been wearing that mask day after day. Because behind the followers, the brand deals, and the carefully curated posts, there was another reality. Fame is a double-edged sword. People loved Gloria, but they also felt entitled to her life. They wanted answers when she looked sad. They demanded explanations when she disappeared for a day. And sometimes, the attention came from people who didn't just want to follow her journey. They wanted to control it. Gloria used to talk about boundaries, how important it was to set them. But I wonder if even she realized how blurred the lines could become when your private life is your business and strangers think they own a piece of your soul. I think about those 7 kids, watching their mother transform into this glowing figure online, never quite knowing how much of it was real. Did they sense the cracks before anyone else did? Kids often do. Because here's something most people don't know. The bigger Gloria's audience grew, the more she looked over her shoulder. The same fame that brought her opportunity also brought her danger. It's tempting to believe that if you're successful enough, strong enough, or loved enough, you're safe from certain evils. Gloria was proof that you could start over at any age. Or so it seemed. But in her case, success might have painted an even bigger target on her back. And as I dug deeper into her story, I discovered a twist I didn't see coming. The man who would eventually take her life was already lurking in the shadows, even during her happiest days. I keep wondering, how many other influencers are living double lives like Gloria did, smiling for the camera, while hiding fear from the very people
a.m. just so that I can go to school by 8.
They say you can never really know what happens behind closed doors. And in Gloria's case, that couldn't be more true. Before the fame, before the followers, there was a man named Thomas Alberto Tamayo Lizarraga. He wasn't famous, or flashy, or particularly public. But he was charming. The kind of man who knew exactly how to say the right things, at least in the beginning. Gloria met him during a season of rebuilding. A time when she was piecing her life back together, hopeful, vulnerable, and maybe still trying to believe in fairy tales. At first, he gave her that illusion, a fresh start, someone who seemed to understand her hunger for something solid. For a while, it worked. There were smiles, family photos, and the illusion of a happy household. He showed up in a few of her early videos, barely noticeable, always in the background. But as time passed, something in Gloria's posts shifted. She started talking more about boundaries, about not letting people steal your peace, about reclaiming your voice. I went back and listened to old episodes of her podcast, Horizon, and I noticed something. In one episode, she said, "Sometimes the hardest person to free yourself from is the one who convinced you they were your safe place." She didn't say his name. She never had to. Friends later said there were signs, changes in her tone, the tension behind her eyes. But Gloria never publicly accused him of anything. There were whispers, arguments behind the scenes, accusations of control, and him tracking her whereabouts. She would disappear from social media for a few days, only to return with a forced smile and a new motivational quote. It was like she was trying to tell us something, without actually saying it. And yet, she stayed. Or maybe she couldn't leave. Not then. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she thought staying would protect her kids. Or maybe she was hoping he'd change, the way so many victims of manipulation do. This is where the cracks in her story begin to show. Thin lines at first, then deeper fractures. People often wonder, why didn't she just leave? But they don't understand what control really looks like. It doesn't always come with fists. Sometimes, it comes with isolation. with subtle guilt, with a carefully planted fear that no one else will ever love you. And the thing that strikes me most is how Gloria, even while in that storm, kept helping other women out of their own. She knew what darkness looked like. She just didn't say how close it had crept into her own home. Let me ask you something. Why do you think people hide the truth about toxic relationships, even from their closest friends? Is it shame, fear, or something even deeper? Let me know in the comments. Because I think if we don't understand the silence, we'll never understand the scream that finally comes after. There comes a moment in so many stories like this, a moment that looks like freedom, a moment that feels like salvation. For Gloria Zamora, that moment came when she decided she couldn't stay married to Thomas any longer. I can only imagine the courage it took to finally say, enough. To look at the man you once loved and know that leaving him was the only way to save your own life. Around that time, her podcast changed. It grew sharper, fiercer. She spoke about standing in your truth, no matter how terrifying it felt. She said, "Your life doesn't belong to anyone else. Not your partner, not your past. You deserve to start over." I wonder now if that was her way of leaving breadcrumbs for the rest of us, clues about the storm she was facing. She talked about forgiving yourself for staying too long, about the terror of letting go. She didn't name Thomas, but she didn't have to. The pain in her voice was enough. But here's the cruel irony, one that so many people don't realize. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when you finally try to leave it. It's a burning fact buried in thousands of police reports and court files. Studies show that the risk of being murdered by an intimate partner skyrockets by as much as 75% during the weeks or months after a woman announces she's leaving. 75%. Let that sink in for a second. It's a number that makes you wonder how many women out there are smiling for photos, packing school lunches, going to work, all while quietly planning their escape. And all while knowing that the moment they step out the door could be the moment that ends their life. Gloria, for all her strength and wisdom, wasn't immune to those odds. And here's the part that makes my stomach twist. While she was recording those empowering messages, believing she could finally reclaim her life, Thomas was watching, listening, waiting. Because the story Gloria wanted to write for herself, a story of freedom, was about to collide with a far darker ending. I keep thinking, how many signs did we miss? How many words in her podcast were coded messages, desperate prayers for someone to intervene? And I have to ask you, why do you think leaving someone abusive is often the most dangerous choice a person can make? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because understanding that truth might be the only way to stop stories like Gloria's from repeating again. It's a cruel truth about life. Sometimes, just when you start to heal, the universe tempts you with hope. For Gloria, that hope arrived in the form of Hector Garduno. Hector wasn't famous. He didn't crave the spotlight. In fact, he seemed happiest just being a dad, living quietly, far from flashing cameras or viral videos. He was a father of 4 daughters who adored him, and from everything I've learned, he adored them right back. He and Gloria met through friends. It wasn't one of those whirlwind internet romances. It was cautious at first, a few conversations, some tentative text messages, a coffee here and there. Gloria was wary. She had scars. She'd been through the kind of love that leaves you hollow. But Hector, he was different. He listened more than he spoke. He asked how her kids were doing, not how many followers she had. And he never seemed threatened by her independence, or her past, or the giant online community that hung on her every post. Hector sends her messages of soft words full of patience and humor. He made her laugh in a way that felt new. And for the first time in years, Gloria felt safe. She believed love could bloom again. It's so easy for people to say, why doesn't she just leave? But they forget how complicated love is. They forget how deeply humans crave connection, even after the worst betrayals. With Hector, Gloria began to imagine a future. She spoke about traveling again, about making new memories with someone who saw her, not just the fitness influencer, but the woman beneath. But here's the tragedy that makes my chest tighten even as I say it out loud. While she was falling in love, someone else was seething, watching, waiting. Because in the shadows of Gloria's newfound happiness was Thomas, her estranged husband, who refused to accept that Gloria's heart could belong to anyone else. And the more Gloria tried to move forward, the more dangerous Thomas became. I can't stop wondering, was there ever a chance for Gloria and Hector to truly build the life they wanted? Or was their fate sealed the moment they decided to be together? Tell me in the comments. Do you believe people can truly start over after surviving trauma? Or do the ghosts of the past always find a way back? It still pains me to think about how closely we all live under invisible eyes. Gloria might have believed that leaving Thomas would be the end of her nightmare. But for Thomas, it was only the beginning of an obsession. He started watching her, not just in person, but online. And in today's world, that's almost more dangerous than being followed down the street. Because every post, every location tag, every smiling selfie gave him breadcrumbs. Clues about where she was, who she was with, and what new happiness she was daring to build without him. People think stalking is always some stranger lurking in the bushes. But the reality is, it's often the person who used to share your bed. The one who knows your routines, your passwords, and your friends. And Thomas knew Gloria's world intimately. He allegedly began tracking her social media with near-obsessive focus. He'd watch for new faces in her photos. He'd look for hints about where she was going next. And there were rumors, hushed, frightened whispers, that Thomas had begun making threats. I've read statements from people close to Gloria. Some claim Thomas said that if he couldn't have her, no one would. Others say he vowed to destroy any man who dared to stand beside her. Was it bravado? Or was it a plan already forming in his mind? We may never know exactly when the line between jealousy and homicidal rage was crossed. But what we do know is this. The more Gloria tried to move on, the closer danger crept. There's a terrifying logic behind it. For men like Thomas, the loss of control can feel like a kind of death. And sometimes, they'd rather take everyone down with them than accept being left behind. I think about how social media connects us all, but also exposes us. A simple Instagram story can tell an abuser everything they need to know to find you, to hurt you. And here's the twist that still makes me shiver. While Gloria was telling other women how to break free, she was unknowingly giving her predator the map to follow her. I keep asking myself, how many other people right now are posting their lives online, not realizing that someone dangerous is watching their every move? What do you think? Does social media give survivors a voice, or hand their abusers the perfect weapon? Let me know in the comments. Because in Gloria's case, it might have been both. It was supposed to be just another Saturday night. Gloria and Hector had gone out for sushi, a small restaurant in Fontana, California, one of those tucked-away neighborhood spots where nobody expects anything more than a good meal and easy conversation. They'd spent the day like any normal couple might, texting, laughing, choosing a place to eat. It was still new between them, but something about it felt right, comfortable. Inside the restaurant, the lighting was soft, the music low. They weren't in a rush, just enjoying each other's company. To anyone watching, they looked like any other couple falling in love for the second time in their lives. I imagine Gloria leaning in across the table, laughing. Maybe Hector reaching for her hand. Two people who'd survived heartbreak and were finally allowing themselves to hope again. And then, Hector asked, "Ready to go?" "Sure, let's get the check." Gloria answered. They walked out together. Just before 10 p.m. The air was still warm from the California sun. The parking lot was half full, quiet. Gloria was wearing heels. Hector might have held the door. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Because in that moment, Thomas was already there, parked, armed, watching. What Gloria and Hector thought was the end of a peaceful dinner was actually the beginning of something unspeakable. And here's the part that still wrecks me. In those final moments, there was no warning. No time to run. No time to say goodbye. It happened in seconds. I'll tell you what happened next. But just know, nothing can prepare you for the horror that followed. The moment Gloria and Hector stepped out of that sushi restaurant, the clock started ticking toward tragedy. Nearby, there was another man in the parking lot. An off-duty deputy from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. He wasn't there on a case. He was just grabbing dinner, like everyone else. But as Gloria and Hector crossed toward their car, the deputy noticed something odd. A man lurking near a vehicle, watching them too intently. A chill must have crawled up his spine, though he couldn't have known how deadly the next seconds would be. And then it happened. Thomas stepped forward, gun in hand, and opened fire. Screams tore through the night. Diners ducked behind cars. Someone dropped a takeout bag, rice scattering across the pavement. Gloria fell. Hector staggered. The shots kept coming. People were yelling, "Call 911! Call 911!" In the chaos, the off-duty deputy drew his own weapon. He shouted for Thomas to drop the gun, but Thomas kept shooting. The deputy fired back. When the shooting stopped, the silence felt heavier than the gunfire. In seconds, Gloria's new beginning had turned into a nightmare. She and Hector were both bleeding, unresponsive, rushed to the hospital, but it was already too late. Thomas lay dead at the scene, killed by the deputy's bullet. I keep thinking about the deputy, what it must feel like to pull your weapon when you're off the clock. No badge, no backup, just the split-second decision to save strangers from certain death. Some people call him a hero. Others wonder if it was too dangerous for him to intervene alone. And so I have to ask you, should off-duty officers step into violent situations, even when it might cost them their own lives? Or should they stay back and wait for help? What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes, one person's courage is the only thing standing between life and total devastation. The moments after the gunshots ended were somehow even more haunting than the violence itself. People crawled out from behind parked cars, eyes wide with disbelief. Plates of sushi sat abandoned on outdoor tables, soy sauce dripping slowly off the edges. Someone was crying so hard, they could barely speak into the phone pressed against their ear. Paramedics rushed in, red and white lights swirling over shocked faces. EMTs dropped to their knees beside Gloria and Hector, their voices urgent, counting out chest compressions, demanding stretchers. I imagine Gloria lying there, under the glow of neon signage, a woman who once glowed with unstoppable energy, now fighting for her life on a slab of asphalt. Hector beside her, still as stone. Meanwhile, police officers closed off the parking lot, yellow tape stretching across the chaos. Reporters started gathering at the edges, cameras snapping. The sushi restaurant staff huddled together, trembling, trying to piece together how a peaceful dinner became a massacre. And then came the confirmation, first whispered, then spoken aloud. Thomas Tamayo was dead at the scene, shot by the off-duty deputy who'd intervened. But for Gloria and Hector, there was no miracle. They were loaded into ambulances and rushed to the hospital under blaring sirens. But neither of them survived. In the span of mere minutes, 2 lives were gone. 7 children lost their mother. 4 daughters lost their father. 2 families were torn apart. And across social media, shockwaves rippled out. People were stunned, scrolling through Gloria's Instagram, rewatching her videos, listening to her voice on old podcast episodes, trying to understand how someone so full of life could be silenced so suddenly. 2 lives lost, 3 families shattered, and one question echoing across every headline, every news report, every comment section online. Why? Why did it have to end like this? And why does it keep happening over and over again? Sometimes I wish I could go back and warn them. Tell Gloria not to post her location. Tell Hector to stay inside that restaurant 5 minutes longer. Tell Thomas to let go of the rage burning through his veins. But the truth is, time only moves forward. And now we're left with the pieces of a story that should have ended so differently. 2 lives were stolen far too soon. But Gloria's voice and Hector's kindness still live on in the people who love them, in the children they leave behind, in every woman who listened to Gloria's podcast and found the courage to believe she deserved more. And maybe, in all of us, who are left to carry their story forward. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please know there is help. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. You deserve safety. You deserve freedom. And even if you're not the one experiencing abuse, check in on your friends, your sisters, your neighbors. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones hiding the deepest fear. Let me ask you, how can we better support friends and family who might be in danger but are afraid to leave? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation alive, because talking about it might save someone's life. And if you found this story important, please subscribe. There are so many stories like Gloria's that need to be told, and together, we can make sure they're never forgotten. See you in my next video.